This is where it comes down to you shouldn't be selling. You know, it's coming down to what actually does the business do,
Okay.
and what issues are they trying to solve, rather than them coming with what they perceive to be the solution will fix these problems. It's actually hearing what they not want, what they need, what they're doing, and then it's up to us to, I suppose, plan and plot what that solution is for them and how to achieve it.
The Guardian Irish Business Podcast is a tour around the entrepreneurial industry here in Dublin and across the country. We have the great privilege here at Guardian of working with some of the most inspiring and influential small businesses in Ireland and the people that run them, who are forming and shaping the future of many different sectors of the Irish economy. I thought it would be interesting to chat to and learn from these people, which we do every day, but memorialise it in a podcast which could then be shared with our friends and clients and you, the listener. Hello everybody and welcome to our podcast. Today we have Stephanie Davies, the Managing Director of Pimbrook Software. So Stephanie, thank you for coming along. And if you don't mind, we'll start at the beginning. Take it all back. Where did it all start for you?
Oh goodness, you're starting to send me back a couple of decades now. I suppose I started actually being interested in accountancy because I liked maths.
Right.
And then actually that probably took another twist because I ended up into software, using accountancy and software, and then I went into implementation of it. But on the long and the short of it was I decided one day that I would set up a company, and instead of, I suppose, selling software, I'd like to implement software.
Okay.
And to let customers have what they want. So I formed Brook. That was the day it all started.
So let me stop you. You just mentioned there, instead of selling software. So originally, were you a salesperson in the software industry?
No, I am
okay.
not. I am not
Okay.
a salesperson.
Okay.
And we'll probably dig deeper later on that. But
Yeah.
no, I'm probably the worst salesperson because I actually look at things and see what people need,
Right.
and then probably tell them that they don't need what I'm probably offering. Sometimes that's happened.
Okay.
But no, it was an intention to give people software that they could actually use for their business.
Right.
As boring as that sounds,
Okay.
that was the intention.
Okay. And when was that? How old is Pimbrook now?
Oh, well, Pimbrook was formed about 2002. And that was when I left Sage.
Okay.
And I decided that I was going to take the Sage product and implement that into businesses around Ireland. And I think from history, I had worked in another development of software company. So I kind of had an idea that, you know, even if you spend millions, there are businesses out there that don't spend millions but want software just to run their business. And
Right.
then about 2016, we merged with Pims and Pimbrook was formed. So
Okay.
that's what's happened over the last 20 years.
Okay. You make it all seem so easy, right? but going back and maybe focusing prior to even Brook Software, right? A female in the IT sector, what was that like back then? I mean, did you find that challenging, or because you would have been in the minority at the time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it was funny when I was doing accounts in the software development company originally, and they brought me across the road to the pub and said, do you know what? You should move into support
Okay.
and implementation and technical pieces. And I
Right.
said, you just fired the guy about 2 hours ago that did that job. And you're
Right.
telling me that this is a good career
Good
move.
move. Okay. Right.
So I believed them.
Okay.
And decided I would give it a go. And I would be out on site on big pharmaceutical sites with lots of male colleagues. My colleagues weren't a problem, but sometimes where I went on site, they weren't expecting a female, so I could be talked over a few times. But
Okay.
I was very lucky that on some people I met that
Right.
brought me on through.
Okay. So Stephanie, for the people out there who aren't familiar with Sage, what is Sage and what's your product?
Yeah. So Sage started off primarily as a developer and manufacturer of accountancy software. So back in 1986, that's when it first started, when an accountant decided that it shouldn't be just on paper.
Okay.
It should be an application. So
I'm sorry, can I stop you there? Are you telling me Sage is only formed since 1986?
Yeah.
Okay, because I began to train as an accountant in 1980. And to my recollection, Sage was always there. But
Yeah, no, as well, I don't know when I started accountancy, Colin. I started with big red white books.
Yes, I did too. Yeah.
And it wasn't back in 1986, but no, that's where I suppose it developed. It enhanced out to a mainstream product and then went global. So they have accountancy software and payroll software.
Right.
And they're ultimately global now at this stage, but they manufacture their own software there.
Okay.
And that's the primary function of them.
Okay. So from being an employee, what was the driver or what switch flicked that suddenly made you want to become a business owner and go out on your own? Was there an event? Was there redundancy? Was there a closure of a company, or what prompted that?
I felt car sick coming home from a wedding one day.
Right.
If I make it that simple.
Okay.
And I was on holidays and I got a phone call from my work, and they didn't appreciate I was on holidays. And I just went, do you know what? I actually want to do something different.
Right.
And it wasn't move jobs.
Okay.
In fairness, I was working with Sage, had some great people, had a brilliant boss. So that wasn't going to solve the problem.
Right.
And I think the fact I was working in Sage and I was working with business partners there.
Right.
And that just teased out over a number of months. And in fairness, my boss there in Sage gave me 100% backing. And it just took off from there, really.
Okay.
And I suppose I was quite lucky that the business partners that I was managing actually were becoming my competitors.
Right.
But I was very lucky because I treated people very well at the time, and I wasn't coming out trying to stand on anybody's toes.
Okay.
That they gave me a little bit of leeway on it.
Right.
So.
And dare I ask, was there anyone else starting this with you, or was it you in your room and you said, no, I'm going to do this? And was there just you on day one, or had you other colleagues you brought in?
No,
okay.
just me, converted bedroom, no kids, so it was much easier.
Right.
Decided actually, funny enough, that I was working for a few business partners doing a bit of consultancy. That was the first thing until I got my own clients.
Okay.
And then my husband...
That paid the bills, maybe?
That paid the immediate bills. Okay. And then my husband was saying, I want to come out and join you.
Okay.
And that was that was probably the most scary thing, because that meant actually both of us were coming off the no salaries.
Okay.
So he joined I don't know, was it a number of months later?
All right. Months, not years, like.
Not years, no.
Okay.
And
that was a big, brave decision.
I'm thankful you said brave, because I'm not sure I'd reflect on it like that.
Right.
But and then we just went looking for business and prayed a lot that it would all work out.
Okay. And was he in the same sector, or had he other business skills, or?
He would have been a developer.
Okay.
So the idea was to try and take the Sage product and develop it further.
Right.
So my attitude was always, that most businesses are 75% the same.
Right.
If you take a distribution, they'll have complexities,
okay.
but most of the business in Ireland actually needed only to spend 25% of the cost of that, what we had been doing in the big business sector.
Okay.
So we thought that we could bring more development to standard off the shelf products.
Okay, so that's what you were focusing on, enhancing the existing Sage software.
Yeah.
Okay, and did you need a license or a formal agreement with Sage on that, or?
Yeah, we did courses and we got skilled up in that. But because Tom had the skills from database structures and architecture and things like that, and SQL skills, that wasn't our biggest challenge.
Okay.
It was actually, what do people want
okay.
added on.
Okay. How did you do that?
Oh, yeah. Well, people come and they say they want this out of software, and in fact, it may not be what they need.
Okay.
So and this is where it comes down to, you shouldn't be selling. It's coming down to what actually does the business do?
Okay.
And what issues are they trying to solve? Rather than them coming with what they perceive to be the solution will fix these problems, it's actually hearing what they not want, what they need, what they're doing. And then it's up to us to, I suppose, plan and plot what that solution is for them and how to achieve it.
Very good. I'm delighted to hear you say that, because as an accountant, being brought into companies and they said, listen, we have spent 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. Now again, this gone back into the day where you bought your software, and they could not produce accounts. They couldn't produce an age debt. They couldn't produce an age creditors, but in particular, they couldn't produce accounts either at year end or on a monthly basis. And we would go into that company and ask, why did you buy this package? And I won't mention the package that has 3 letters in its name, that cost an awful lot of money and £1,000 per day implementation at the time. And it didn't serve the purpose of what that customer needed. So I'm delighted to hear that you'll go and talk to
That's common. That's unfortunately common. I mean, the amount of people that we went in that had boxes of software on their shelves, and you look, oh God, they don't use half of it.
Absolutely, yeah. So you can now provide a tailored package. So again, going back to our clients, some of them need purchase order processing, some need stock control, whatever it might be. So you will actually listen. You need not necessarily buy the entire suite of products that you have for sale.
Or implement them. As I say to people, don't get strangled by software.
Okay.
People go, oh, give me all these feature-rich things and spend money on it. But actually, if you have one, I'll give a simple example, is if you've one person doing a requisition, same person doing the requisition, the purchase order, the goods received, the invoice and paying it. Yeah. Why would you have the person using those 5 functions that take them a couple of hours to work through when actually, in fact, there's no validation there, because they're just going to say yes to everything. You haven't checked whether they were authorized. You haven't checked whether they're allowed that spend. You haven't checked whether, the goods were actually received. So when you take it that, you actually decide what the resource is in-house in the company, and then you decide why you put in certain processes. And
Very good. And from there, so the two of you started in your house working from home. How long was it before you began to employ people, or what was the next step that made you expand the business?
It was only about 2 years later. We got some contracts and things like that, that we got another director involved to try and expand, I suppose, our connections and things like that.
Okay.
So, and then our first employee really came around probably the 2007, 2008, give or take. And that was kind of daunting because you are relying on paying their mortgage. And that was, and when you realize that you're last on the payroll, it may not be your turn. Right. So you're taking somebody else on. We were quite lucky that from our perspective, that the person was unemployed. So we weren't taking them out of the job. But as we employed further people on, that was always my consideration, is if they were leaving a job, you have to be sure that whatever you can predict in the future, that you were intending to keep them on until they wanted to leave.
Very good. And do you mind me asking you, in relation to yourself, having left full-time employment and being used to getting your salary on the 25th of the month, were you able to pay yourself for the first number of months, or you mentioned you were the last, but at least were you paid each month? Did you have that discipline?
Oh, I did, because there was 2 disciplines actually. It was only £1,000 a month.
Okay.
But at least it was something.
Right.
And it was to ensure that I was at my desk if I wasn't on site between 8 and 6.
Okay.
Because otherwise the day was going all over the place.
Right.
And, try and get out maybe for a walk at lunchtime. They were kind of a couple of key things to try and keep some structure.
Right. Very good. So then rolling it forward, you merged or acquired another company. Talk to us about that. How traumatic an experience was that, or indeed was that the next step up for Brook? Yeah,
that was the best thing we ever did, actually, to be honest. And the experience is always tough because the due diligence that you have to go through that I would have no clue about before.
Okay.
We'd never taken on something as detailed as that. But it was actually, funny enough, we changed some of the business model because we were interested in Sage 200 and they had Sage 50. So it was a complementary merge that we were doing.
Okay.
But we realized then that there was actually there was money to be made in that arena, which we didn't think there was.
Okay.
It was also great because the skill sets for Sage 50 and Sage 200 are completely different.
Right.
So when they were looking for Sage 50 and Sage 200 skill set, and so were we were obviously dipping into the same pool of resource. The other thing was actually, instead of having 2 companies looking for it, 1 company looking for it.
Right.
Much more cost effective.
Very good.
I think without being crude, you take a competitor out of the market as well. So it makes sense.
Right.
But no, it was the best thing we did.
Very good. Excellent. And were there any teething problems in that, or looking back now?
Yeah, I think that there is
Okay.
because different people have different ways of doing things, and so you're trying to make sure you don't want to break something,
Yeah.
or try and fix something that's not broken where you
Right.
perceive it to be. So personalities have to be considered, I think,
Okay.
and managed, and
Okay.
I've no issue with that.
Right.
It's a case of listening to and not
Good.
presuming.
Were there any major fallouts of members from either company at the time, or were you able to integrate everybody?
No, I'd say there was probably, because we were starting to go down to Tremor a lot. I'm sure there was some, I suppose, uncertainty about from the Tremor staff whether we try and bring it all back to Dublin.
Okay.
But that was never a tension. That was one of the first things actually that we had agreed.
Right.
Was that Tremor was going to stay in place, and
Very good.
Beautiful place down there. Why not?
And indeed, do you mind me asking? I'm aware Tremor is a physical office, very much there. Do you still have a physical office in Dublin, or have you gone remote? Or
no, well, actually, funny,
virtual?
we had an office for Dublin. They were refurbishing it, so we had to move out pre-COVID.
Right.
And we already had, so when we were doing it, when it started to come back into play, we were saying, do we actually want to go back into this agreement? Because at the time, Tremor had come up as well.
Right.
So we were wondering, and then we were recruiting people remote.
Okay.
So we were starting to go, well, actually, what do we have in the office for?
Right.
Myself and Tom and one other. So
okay.
that all became just a decision we didn't need.
Yeah.
But it was all actually pre-COVID, funny enough,
Okay.
the remote working.
Very good. So you were ahead of the time.
Well,
yeah,
let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Good decision. So there's been positive outcomes of the merge of those two businesses. Do you mind me going back to Sage 50, Sage 200? What changes have you seen in your 20 odd years in the software industry? What major changes have there been in how those packages are now delivered to your clients?
Oh my goodness. Technology. The technology has changed rapidly. And I mean, when I was implementing Sage 200 back obviously nearly 20 years ago, first of all, I could do it. And when we were putting it alongside SQL was 2008. People were saying, oh, don't worry, another SQL won't be out for another 4 years.
Okay.
And we were like going, oh, grand.
Yeah.
Now it's nearly a year ahead of the age,
right.
of itself. I wouldn't be able to do an install of the technology.
Okay.
So that from a technology point of view. From a feature point of view, both of them have progressed so far ahead. We're not in Sage 200 anymore.
Okay.
I have to say, I think it's a brilliant product. It was a business decision. Again, we decided to partner with another company and let them take all the Sage 200. We take all the Sage 50. And again, another competitor out of the market. But from the feature richness of it, yeah, I think the products are, the expectation from the user is very high.
Okay.
I think it's like the expectation in life is everything has to be quick.
Yes. Okay. And going back, my recollection, if as an accountant in industry at the time, to change your software package or to buy a software package, you're talking a capital investment of 5,000 minimum to 25,000, depending on the size.
Yeah, that's all changed. It's all down to subscription. Okay. It's like even you look at your phone, if you download an app, if you look at anything, it's all subscription. I don't believe the majority of any software is now in capital. And we do monthly subscriptions. Right. So even if it comes down to, we may bundle in even some of the implementation costs and things like that. So it is, so
into
people
the
can
subscription.
Into the subscription.
Okay. That must have been a huge change for you, because again, if you go back, that you make a sale to a reasonable sized company, you're quoting 25 grand for the software, you invoice them, you might get 50% up front, 50% on implementation, or 25%, whatever it might be. How did you cope as a business from going, if you take 20 installations in the year and you're up to 500,000, if you don't then sold 20 installations in 3 months, but it's all as a subscription.
It's huge. It's huge for the cash flow. And I think that was one of my very early learning curves on doing business, that was the make or break.
Okay.
So what we actually did was we had annual kind of perpetual contracts anyway. So we left those in place, and any new sales, we went to subscription.
Okay.
So we didn't do it. We did it over kind of a 2-year period. So anything new was subscription, and then anything legacy that we could still charge for on a 30-day return or something like that, then we kept that in place. But it was 2 years, and I have to say it gives you more work on accountancy because you're doing more collections monthly.
Right.
But theoretically, it should be all balancing out by itself because it's direct debit.
Sure.
That makes sense.
Okay, but a phenomenal change to be sitting here and able to run your business and have adopted to losing those huge initial sales and running it on a subscription basis.
But on the flip side of that, sometimes the sale took longer because the capital investment from the client took a longer time to swallow that, pill.
Right. You're reminding me there as well that, to my knowledge, you couldn't particularly get finance on software. You could on hardware, but software, banks would have turned around and said, no, sure, if you buy that today, we can't resell it tomorrow. So it was very difficult. So it put a big cash flow strain on your customers.
They were very slow to bring in. I think they eventually, but it was actually at the stage subscription concept was coming in, that by the time they said that they would lend to software, it was nearly too late at that stage.
Right.
And they certainly wouldn't lend on services, training, because the person could be gone.
Yes. Yeah, indeed. So we are here in 2022, and you're referring to the change from capital investment to software as a service. Is there anything you see coming down the tracks in the next year or 2 years that's going to be a serious threat or change to your business? Or are you sitting back saying, thank God things have smoothed it out?
Well, you never sit back.
No. Yeah.
We only laughed there, saying that even since we've been in Tremor, every year there's been something, whether it's been the storm, whether it's been Brexit, whether it's been COVID, whether it's been Microsoft end of life of some software, there's been payroll modernization.
Okay.
That's changed since 1960. That was a massive change.
Yes.
So every year there's been a challenge. So we now know that there's no way we started January thinking that's it. I think there's a conflict over cloud. I think there's a problem there. We're all trying to go to cloud, because that's where everything seems to be easier, and it is.
Right.
But like everything, when technology works, it's the best.
Yes.
When technology doesn't work, we are all left helpless.
Okay.
It's like when we can't get a reception on our phone.
Yes.
The battery runs out in our phone.
Yeah.
There could be somebody next to you with a phone saying, use my phone, but you haven't got a clue with their number.
Right.
It's useless.
Okay. Yeah.
So the problem is, I don't know where we're going to be dependent on that cloud and it's staying up.
Right.
I'm not technical, so I don't understand the difference between Wi-Fi and internet and contention. And I mean, so I think that's our biggest challenge. Everybody wanting this.
Yes.
But actually when it's there, will it stay available to us? And then we've lost every access.
Yeah, right. Again, looking back, and going back to your big bold move to go out on your own, had you a mentor, or was there somebody that you'd experienced or met or worked under in your career prior to that you really admired, or that influenced you, or that you used for advice or bouncing things off?
I would love to say there was, but it was pure and utter naivety. Going out and starting the business, I have to say. I came across brilliant people that I worked with and that I would admire their work ethic, and a financial controller lady, actually, funny enough, that I came across up in Belfast.
Right.
And we would work through the night, and I brought kind of my exposure, first of all, to some software, bringing it up and trying to implement it there. And she said, you're going to ask my goods in chap at the back door to know I want him to post my nominal, as you know, from an accountant. Yeah. I went, oh, no, right. So working with her, working with a couple of bosses in my old job, but not influencing. No, it was, unfortunately, it was naivety.
Right.
I don't know. Then there was this big loud crash that happened, which I was looking around going, will that affect me?
Okay. But you're here today. You got through it.
Still here, yeah.
Okay. You refer to your husband, Tom, that joined the business. Still in the business with you?
He's still in the business. Good. And he's still my husband.
Very good. Two good things.
Yeah.
How has that worked? Many people say, stay away from children and family.
Yeah. I have to say, well, Tom and myself are together over 25 years, and we've only worked separately for 2 years. And I would not be able to run this business without him. I think what we bring to the table between us, I won't say it doesn't cause contention sometimes, but and it can absorb a lot of our time. But no, I wouldn't have worked or done this with anybody else.
Okay, very good. Good. Going back to Pimbrook, I see that you both sell the service, provide training, provide support, implementation. Relatively unique, or how do you find that? And do you think you have an expertise in that area?
Yeah, I think we do have an expertise, and we will be the largest Sage 50 and payroll supplier in Ireland.
Okay.
And I think because we it's not about just providing support. It's not a call center. It's a consultative support. So
Okay.
we try and get to know the business, and it's not installing software. As I go back to the reference of it, is implementing it
Right.
to ensure that the business is getting all the shortcuts covered.
Okay.
So the effort that we put in, I think, and the expertise that Tom and myself have come from of implementing systems, as I said, in huge global pharmaceutical companies and food industry, and that the two most difficult industries, we've been able to bring that expertise in and just say everybody deserves access to that, even if they're only spending 150 quid a month.
Right.
So certainly we put a lot. The other key thing we do is we're actually not relying on technology for support. We're actually relying on people. So we're recruiting more people. We're not going to really go down that chat.
Okay.
We'll have knowledge articles and things like that. But I think a lot of software suppliers are relying on email, chat, knowledge-based articles.
Sure.
We believe that Ireland still wants to speak to a person, because if it comes to accounts or payroll, they're not reading something and spending hours over it.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that, because I personally just love to talk to a person.
Yeah.
Here's my problem. Have you experienced? Yes, of course I have. Here's how we solve that. And lovely, it's quicker. So thank
absolutely.
You. Delighted to hear that.
You know, we have about, I think they're recording something. We do surveys on the support, and I think we're recording 99% satisfaction, you know, on people who are using us, because we can, and we got 2 levels of support. So the great thing is we've got, when you phone up, we've got the people on front line, so they're doing the quick fire ones.
Okay.
Dial on, get you sorted quickly, or we've got people that are off the phones who troubleshoot, so they can spend a lot more detail looking at it with you. So there's no pressure of phones ringing in the background. You know, you hear that and you feel like somebody's rushing you. Yeah. No, we got that 2 level.
But again, Stephanie, if you don't mind me saying, as a user, back in the day, you frequently had problems with bugs, errors, whatever it might be, on different packages. But in this day and age, there are less and less. So I think that's testimony to your own business and the product development there. So is there, Sage are the people who are investing in the product, but you're the people who are frontline supporting that.
Yeah, well, we work very closely with Sage, because we obviously test, we are testing software outside of support. So because obviously we do exams, we do internal training, we're always looking at kind of areas of the product that are not frequently used. And what we do is we feed that back for Sage. So we'd be on a steering group with Sage.
Okay.
So we'd be able to, because the volumes that we go through and the challenges that we get fed, being kind of having the largest customer base, then we'd go back to them directly. So it would be a case of trying to keep those to a minimum. But to be fair to any software, something is the expectation of the amount of features we want.
Sure.
Little things do continue to get broken, but what we do is we try and take the software in-house first for a couple of months before we put it on site. So then we'll go through versions with Sage and then hopefully avoid that scenario.
Brilliant. And indeed, referring to Sage, I see you've been Sage business partner for Sage 50 for the last 5 or 6 years. That must be nice to be recognised for that.
It is, and my slightly competitive side obviously keeps me on my toes.
Want
to be the winner, absolutely. And I think we'd be one of the largest contributors there in the revenue there to Sage. So certainly, we have a very good relationship there. I think we want to stay up there.
Good. So where do you see the future for Pimbrook? And you know, if you're a very large reseller at the moment, you've won the awards. What's the opportunity for Pimbrook going forward now in the next couple of years, or where do you see the company going?
Yeah, well, since we formed and merged into Pimbrook, I mean, we've always had the attitude that we want to grow and increase that base multiple times, because I think it's a rolling thing. We can invest further into it, and I think the number of businesses growing out there in Ireland is there too. And look, Sage has, if not between Ireland and the UK, well over 500,000 to 750,000 of Sage 50 sites out there. So there's loads of opportunities for us to grow into that and hopefully get some more people and more staff and and do that. But we'll have a look then what's outside of that.
Okay, very good. Could I ask you, new to me in the last 18 months, 2 years maybe, is Sage 1, a real cloud-based entry-level package.
Yep.
Where do you see that, and what type of client would that be suitable for?
Yeah, I think it's a great product. And it's opening up the cloud and the starter, and I think financially the monthly fee on it is very acceptable for most businesses.
Okay.
There's a lot of development coming into that, and I think that
Right.
is going to fast forward pretty quick over the next 12 months.
Okay.
I think it's probably a starter.
Right.
Entry into it now. The functionality in the last 18 months has probably trebled.
Right.
As they've been putting the effort into it. So it's certainly something we will look to support clients on if that's a requirement there.
I must say, as an accountant and using it and seeing it, I'm just blown away by the features, as you mentioned, like what you would have paid €1,200 for 10 years ago even, right? You're now getting from monthly subscription of 10 or 20 euros. And I say 10 or 20 because I don't really care. It's so small. Yeah. It's irrelevant, but it's fantastic for us as accountants that we can now go to a startup business. The startup people come to us and we say, listen, get yourself an accounts package at the start. You can do your invoicing in real time, anywhere, sitting in your car, sitting in your van, and all for whatever it is per month. Yeah. And it just saves. Forget about Excel, forget about little apps for your invoicing. Just buy yourself the Sage 1.
Yeah, I think nowadays, I mean, Excel is brilliant, and it has its
a place in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. The problem with it is it's not multi-user. It can corrupt, and unless it's a single person user, where you get applications have guidelines, validation in their expectations, so and consistency. Nice. So you know yourself, you go in, you see a list of invoices. Yeah. It's not like where somebody decides to date it this way in one row. Correct. Or start. Sure. They're only letters and numbers. So I think you're right. I think from your perspective is the access to have somebody, there should be no resistance now for
not
that.
At all. No,
and then you've got the access remotely yourself.
Sure. So. Yeah. And I have to say, from a user-friendly point of view, sitting down from a zero start, I believe a person can actually get to use what they need to use out of the package in an hour or two. You know, it's so easy to take on. So no, compliments to Sage and to yourselves for having such a nice, easy, simple to use package without being a computer programmer or an accountant for that matter.
That's what we've said to people. The onboarding is hours. I mean, it's a couple of hours depending on competency maximum. Okay. But yeah, you could be invoicing out and receiving money very quickly.
Very good. Good. Yeah, it's good to hear. You're mentioning apps there. And again, this is a fundamental change in business and software and accounting. Is there any app you're personally using in your business that you see as indispensable now that you're getting? And I'm not referring to a Sage product even, just is there any particular app that you've said, my God, this has changed my life or helped me to become much more efficient or productive?
There's we've had it for a while, direct debits and things like that, and it's very trivial. But I think it's your cash flow. Okay. I think anything around using for your cash flow, and that's probably the hardest lessons I've learned over the 20 years. And even when people were telling me about the importance of cash flow, until you experience the lack of it, that's it. And so it's not any particular app. It's actually, so people can use anything they want, but actually is looking at their banking, their cash flow, their bank reconciliations, knowing where that is. I would recommend people look out for anything to do with that and reporting.
Yeah, and look, I'd agree with you. And looking at business the last 5 or 7 years even, I remember that going to a bank and asking them or seeking a direct debit payment facility, and they turn around and say, I'm sorry, you're too small, you need to have a turnover of €1 million and we want personal guarantees and all of this. And it was just prohibitive. You couldn't do it. But even the direct debit facility and all the apps that go along, how to get paid. Yeah, good to hear. It's good to hear from.
That would be the first thing I'd say to people is, and I mean, you know yourself, changing to monthly, it changes credit control. It becomes administrative opposed to credit control. Sure. And that's what you need when it comes down to the funds.
Yeah, get the money in.
Yeah.
It's good. So as we come to the end of our talk today, could I ask you, sitting here, successful businesswoman, having built Pimbrook to what it is, if you sold it tomorrow morning, is there anything that you'd like to do in your career or business, or is there an opportunity that you say, I'd love to have a try at that and start all over again?
Do you know what? I think probably getting to the age I am, it's charity work. I've always wanted to do charity work. So if I could afford it, that would be all I do. I remember the Nile melon thing there. So actually, funny enough, I'd signed up to do that back years ago.
Right.
And but I fell pregnant, so that got knocked on the head. And it was always something there that I'd stick local now, obviously, but yeah, it's something that I think that's what if I could afford it, I'd prefer to do. I don't think I would, my children are still young, I don't think I would venture out maybe on a new career, unless business became out of charity, if that makes sense. But that would be where I'd look first.
Is there a particular cause close to your heart?
Oh God, the problem with charity, and nowadays there's hundreds of them, if not thousands of charities out there, and everybody needs a helping hand. And there would be tons I would be kind of close to, but I think where I would start, probably as hard as I think it is with children. Right. I think that would be one place where I would, because I think a child's start in life is what can sometimes lead to their destination. And I think if you start very early on and have that guidance, whether it's to do with education or sickness, I think that would be where my passion might lie.
Okay, very good. Good to hear. Well, Stephanie, thank you very, very much for coming to us today, and thank you for your time.
No, appreciate that, Colm. Always good to talk.
If you want to learn a little more about Guardian, you can go to guardianaccountants.ie, where you'll learn about everything that we can do. If you're enjoying the Guardian Irish Business podcast, please do share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe, like and review wherever you are listening. Thanks for listening. Until next time.